he's lost the court case comprehensively. Instead of taking it on the chin, instead of saying, OK, what he does, he comes out, he goes, the judge is biased. Does he know how foolish and deranged he sounds?
It's utterly humiliating for him.
Meghan was talking to a friend. She said, I wish he'd let go of these lawsuits. I support him 100%, but I want him free of the burden of litigation. Can you imagine what it must be like living with Harry Windsor? He's obsessed by the media. He has an obsessive hatred of the tabloid press. He believes the tabloid press to be responsible for the death of his mother.
I think there's another reason behind this. Hello, welcome to Daily Expresso. I'm joined today by Carole Malone, the Baltic folk dancer.
No, it was Bosnian. As my husband said, that this top he thought it made me look like a Bosnian folk dancer, which wasn't the look I was going for. I was trying to look cool, summery, beachy. Anyway.
I do like it.
Bosnian
I do like it. It's very new, right?
You look up a
You're
photo.
taking the tags off about
No, I know. You look up the photos of a Bosnian folk dancer and you'll see that my husband was not being complimentary. Anyway, I love Bosnia.
Yes.
That's just good to say that.
I know what you don't love though, Carole.
What?
Prince Harry.
Do you know, I really don't love him. There he was yesterday. He's lost the court case comprehensively. This where he said the Daily Mail Associated Newspapers had invaded his privacy, him and another 6 kind of high-profile people. And so he's lost. And he lost because there was no evidence, basically. And the judge made that really clear. There was no evidence to support a single one of the 57 claims, 14 of which were Harry's. And what does he do straight after? Instead of taking it on the chin, instead of saying, OK, what he does, he comes out, he goes, the judge is biased. It's an establishment stitch-up. I've been wronged. Does he know how foolish and deranged he sounds when he says stuff like this? There was a 400-page, the judge he produced a 400-page summary of the case, and which he lists in vast detail the reasons why there was no evidence and nothing to back up these claims. And yet Harry's immediate response is, it's a stitch-up. This is the judge's bias. The judge is at fault. It's nonsense. The judge is not at fault. And the bottom line is, a lot of judges might, not this particular one, I'm not saying it was him, but a lot of judges might see slamming a newspaper as a good thing to do and use any opportunity to do that.
I was going to say, Carole, we're in the media business. We're no stranger to the judiciary.
Yes.
They are not fans of the media. So for Harry to call this a whitewash,
yes,
it's utterly humiliating for him.
But I think he's humiliated himself. The bottom line here is that a lot of people hate the media, so they will agree with him.
Yeah.
But this case has cost 50 million quid, and the Daily Mail have said they want the court cost back, which means Harry and the other people are going to have to pay a great big chunk of it back.
So to go through that list, we got Harry, Doreen Lawrence, the singer Elton John and his husband David Furnish, Elizabeth Hurley, Sadie Frost, and a former Liberal Democrat minister have got a £50 million legal bill to pay.
And God knows how that would be eked out. Say Harry had 14 specific complaints, but when you think that not a single one of those 57 were upheld, I think he thought that he would get some of them would get passed. And it's interesting today. I think the Times has just produced something saying basically that Harry asked to settle the court case before it went to court. Now, what does that tell you? That tells me he wasn't very sure of his ground.
You're quite right, Carole, because what's the whole point of this trial, right? The whole point of this trial, from Harry's point of view, was humiliate my enemies in the media, drag them through the courts and make them look like the bad guy, right? So why would you want to settle? If that's your aim, why are you trying to settle beforehand?
Yeah, because he's realised, and once having gone through the evidence, and maybe his lawyers have said to him, oh my God, I think we're in trouble here. Anyway, whatever, you don't go to say to a big newspaper like the Mail, let's settle, because other papers have settled with him. And maybe he thought that's the way to make a few bob. Anyway, the Mail said absolutely not, because they were sure of their ground. They knew that they hadn't done. But even today, Harry is still saying, one of the things he said was, this just shows how thick he is. He said, this judgment represents a complete reversal of the position previous judges have taken in relation to hacking claims. Does he not realise that every case is separate, taken on its own merits, judged on the evidence that is in the court at that particular time? This court case lasted 46 days, where 40 journalists were grilled in the dock every day. Some of them, were on the verge of nervous breakdowns by the end of it. I've heard some of them talk since saying, this has taken up years of their life. It's left a great big shadow hanging over their credibility, their careers. And Harry, even today, is saying he still believes those journalists are culpable. Now, if I was a journalist for the Mail, I would be going after him yet again. And 1, for saying the judge was biased, 2, for saying it's a whitewash, 3, for still saying the journalists who have been absolutely cleared of wrongdoing are still guilty in some way.
That's textbook libel, right, Carole? I wouldn't come on here and say that about him, saying, Harry's hacked phones or anything. I would never dream of saying something like that. Because I'd get sued, and rightly so.
Yeah, and to imagine that because he has won one claim against the newspaper, that every newspaper everywhere is guilty of
Must
hacking.
have done it.
It's just appalling. And the thing is, but this is, it's interesting, a couple of years ago, Meghan was talking to a friend who made this quote public. She said, I wish he'd let go of these lawsuits. And she said, I support him 100%. She said, but I want him free of the burden of litigation. She said she wanted him to be happy and to live in the moment. Can you imagine what it must be like living with Harry Windsor? He's obsessed by the media. He has an obsessive hatred of the tabloid press. He believes the tabloid press to be responsible for the death of his mother. Now, everyone knows the death of your mom at that young age is devastating. Yeah. But he's blaming the wrong people. His mother was killed by a drunk driver in a Paris tunnel. End of story. She was not killed by the British media. Was she hounded by them? Yes, there's an argument that she was hounded by them. Was she killed by them? No. But he believes they were ultimately responsible for her death. And he's made it his life's work to go after them. Now, that means that in your head, you're never at peace. He can't let this go. He cannot let this go. And here's Meghan saying, I wish he would just be happy and live in the moment. Can you imagine every day in their house, he's got lawyers ringing in the lead up to this case with evidence. This would have been a 2-year project. And even now that it's over, and it should be over, he's still not letting go. Yeah. He's still saying, this is wrong. I've been wrong.
With 2 kids in the house and all these changes to his life, moving to another country, and he still can't let it go.
Let it go. The thing is, when he says things like this, there's a whitewash and the judge is biased, he sounds mentally ill. He sounds deranged. And you're thinking, does he not have advisors? Does he not have people saying, shut up for now?
Yeah, dude, just keep yourself to yourself.
Just keep quiet.
He's here for the Invictus Games and stuff, right? I mean, just focus on that.
And you know what really upsets me about all of this? This 5-day visit, James, was supposed to be about the Invictus Games and about reconciliation with his father. And what Harry has done is what he always does. He makes everything about him, his needs, his wants. The Invictus Games has barely been talked about because Harry has used all his energy and attention to slag off the court case, to have a go at his team Sussex, all this fuss about where he was going to stay. The reason he didn't get to stay in Buckingham Palace was because he was messing about. Weeks before he was due to come here, and remember this visit was a year in the making, weeks before he was due to come here, he was asked, would he like to stay in Buckingham Palace? And at that point it was for Meghan and the 2 kids. And he didn't respond. And he had a deadline because they said, hey, if we're going to get rooms ready for you, you've got to let us know because Buckingham Palace is a bit of a building site at the moment with renovations. He didn't let them know before the deadline, but he did ring the day after the deadline and said that, no, we're not coming because it's not secure enough. Have you ever been to Buckingham Palace? There's armed guards on every corner. They're tooled up like you wouldn't believe. And Buckingham Palace, even in the state that it's in now, is way safer than anywhere he was on holiday in Europe last week and anywhere he will be staying in London this week. So that was the point, of course, at which Charles said, oh, no, it wasn't. So he said, no, he wasn't coming. So then the staff were dispatched from Buckingham Palace or put onto other jobs. Then later in the day, he rings up and he says, oh, actually, Meghan and the kids aren't coming, but can I stay there for one night? And the king just went, enough now. No, you can't.
Pack it in, yeah.
Pack it in, yeah. Selfish. He probably didn't say that, but that's me saying that. I'm interpreting. But, and people inside the palace are saying, yeah, Charles was upset about the disrespect to him. I mean, he is the king after all, and he's his father. But the disrespect and the disdain for the staff who were working like Billy-O to get the rooms ready. You can imagine what the work they put into that. That's what apparently triggered Charles. And he said, "No, you're not coming."
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, Carol, or Harry's advocate.
Try
rather.
your best, because you won't mean it, of course. But anyway, give it a go.
Of course. Look, it's quite sad, isn't it, that Harry's not been able to stay at Buckingham Palace. And even if the logistics are tight, even if it is a bit difficult, I think King Charles risks looking a little bit like a petty landlord.
I don't think he looks like a petty landlord at all. I think when you've been messed around by this young man as much as that family have, I think, if Harry had really wanted the reconciliation, we've heard for weeks that he wants with his pa, as he calls him, he could have brought Meghan and the kids very quietly, and they could have met behind closed doors, and they could have 3 or 4 days together as a family. They could have done all that without the fanfare. But no. Harry, the man who says he hates his privacy being invaded, he hates the publicity. What did he do? He's made a song and dance about it. He's turned this into a media circus. And even when he knew he couldn't stay in Buckingham Palace, Team Sussex, probably on his orders, said, "Oh, he is staying there," probably hoping to bounce the king into letting him stay.
Everything is digital now, isn't it? Your money, your photos, even your loyalty card at the coffee shop. So there's something quietly brilliant about owning one thing that isn't on a screen. Real gold bullion. The weight of it, the shine, it's just a lovely thing to hold. The Pure Gold Company, which was voted the UK's best gold broker, makes owning physical gold really simple. Tax-free gold coins from the Royal Mint with friendly one-to-one guidance from your first question to final delivery. There's no jargon, no pressure, no call centre queues. It's insured to your door or stored in a secure professional vault. So visit the Pure Gold Company today and tell them JJ sent you.
Here's the behind the scenes story for the viewers. How it went was basically, as you say, first thing we hear is from the Sussexes team saying he's going to be staying at Buckingham Palace. You saw it on Sky News, all of that. Then Buckingham Palace are rushed into a statement saying, well, actually, not to burst the bubble, guys, he's not. And then there's this back and forth going on behind, and who to believe?
Well, right. I know who I
know who you believe.
I know who I believe, because this guy of old.
Yep.
You know that, Harry, that's why he's never going to be able to fit back into the royal family, because he's gone rogue now. And he will refuse to follow the protocols. He will refuse to follow the rules. And because of that, he's never going to get back in. But, Charles, for everything that Harry has done to his family, to him, to Camilla, to the Queen, my God, he upset the Queen, to Wills and to Kate. For all of that, Charles still put out his hand and was prepared to forge a little pathway to let Harry have an in and to come back and to see where that would go. That would have allowed the kids to meet their cousins and to meet the uncle and aunts they've never met, and it would have allowed Charles to be a grandfather to those kids. And he's chucked all that back in their face by making a big song and dance about where he stays. If I was the king, I wouldn't let him stay in any of the royal residences, because did he not stomp out of this country saying he hated the royal family, didn't want to be part of it, he thought they were racist, he thought British people were racist, he was going to make a new life in a different country and stuff the royals. And suddenly, now I expected to put him up in the palaces. Why? He should have been grateful his dad put out the hand of friendship. And of course, we know that Wills was upset about that. Wills was saying to him, this will all blow up in your face. And it absolutely has blown up in his face.
So I want to come back on a point you mentioned earlier, Carol, which was very interesting, about how Meghan feels about all of this litigation behind the scenes. To go back to the court case. She says, or told a source who told the media, I want Harry just to kind of relax and kind of live his life. Yeah. And I think there's another reason behind this. Is it money? He's lost this case.
Oh, God, of course.
He's now in the hole.
Of course.
Their Netflix cash is running out.
Yes.
Spotify run for the hills.
Yeah.
Are they on the brink of bankruptcy?
So, God knows how many millions they're going to have to fork out now for this court case, which is why he will not pursue it. People are saying you should carry on and try and do it again. He won't. Back then, when he first launched this battle, they had the big money contracts, and a lot of the other cases that he's brought against papers, he had money to kind of finance that, but they don't now. And one of the reasons they wanted to come back to London was because they wanted to try and make some kind of business life here too. They're running out of options in the USA because the people in the USA think they're both a joke, and they're grifters, and they are absolutely those things. So they've beggared all that as well, because if you are going to go into business with Harry and Meghan, you'd look at what they do. Everything they touch turns to you know what. You just wouldn't go within a million miles of them. So Meghan will be saying to him now, you get over this. You're not suing anybody else. And you're not going to use our money to sue anybody.
Quite on the point, Carol. Look, we're going to move on now to another royal.
Are we? Right, okay.
Prince Edward.
Yes.
There's a new tell-all book out by the actress Ruthie Henshall. She's revealed some very racy and lewd details. Carol, do you want to take that away? I'm blushing.
You say very racy and lewd details. It's a very, very sweet story. I have to question why Ruthie Henshall has written this book, because she stayed quiet for a lot of years. And then I think I read a piece recently that says she's a little bit strapped for cash. She's not the young girl she once was. She was the darling of stage shows, of London theatre and London musicals. And I think she's a bit strapped for cash, which is why she's done this. But she's done it. Yes, she talks about them having sex. But you know what? You've got to plough a long way before you get to the sex part. It's all about sweet little kisses and picnics and, how she would go to the palace and they would have drinks. It took them 3 months to give her a proper kiss, I think. So it's not exactly racy. It's not.
Well, it goes from being very sweet to very lurid. Shall I read you an extract?
You read that one sentence that will justify what you're going to say.
Well, look, she said at one point, he undressed me and took me to his bed and we made love for the first time. He was romantic and gentle and definitely not gay. He definitely had experience. Then she later says, later I'd often shag him into oblivion, leaving him bleary-eyed when he had to get up early the next day.
So the one word there that could be deemed racy is the word shag, okay? It's a word that we all say, just not on camera necessarily and not necessarily in a book. However, if you're having an affair with somebody, well, then you're going to do that. Of course, that's part of the deal. But what I get from this book is she really likes Edward, and she was a young kid then. She was in her early 20s, and he was young too. And they were really sweet on each other. It was that kind of lovely, lovely, innocent love affair where they were dotty about each other. And I think it's very sweet. And she hasn't said a bad word about him. She said he doesn't have a cruel bone in his body. She talks about how, how it ended and how she was out for dinner with him when she was going out with a guy called John Gordon Sinclair, or Gordon John Sinclair, is the way around. He's the guy that we all know from the football movie. He was a Scottish actor. Right. You know the one I mean?
Not a clue, Carol, to be honest.
You're too young.
I'm not very a fan of my
anyway,
celebrities
it'll come to me in a second. But anyway, it was a huge hit, this movie. So she was madly in love with him at the time, and Edward invited her and him out for dinner with him and Sophie. And she said, it was this kind of surreal experience that... this man I'd been crazy mad in love with for 5 years, and vice versa. Here we were having dinner with our new partners, and she said it was all okay. She said it was the right ending. He was with the right woman, and I was with the right man, and that's such a sweet book. There's no dropping anyone in it. And I don't know how happy Edward would be about the book, but I
was going to ask. Okay, it sounds like everyone was all happy. Go lucky at the end, but how do you think Edward and Sophie feel reading this now?
Well, I think the fact that she has said he was a good lover, I don't think, how can you get upset about that? I think she said the fact he had experience and was a good lover is a very good thing. Yeah, I think, if he cared about her, but they kept in touch over the years, and I think I read in that thing that she still texts him every now and again. If that is true, and she is skint, and she needs to make some money, I think... he'd have said, go for it. I'm making this up. I don't know. But if I was him and I cared about her and had cared about her over the years and she was broke, I'd say go for it. Just don't be cruel. And she hasn't been cruel. She's been incredibly complimentary of him. She talked about, how passionate they were, how decent he was, and that's and you kind of, even now when you see Edward, you can see that he's decent. I saw him on the Alan Titchmarsh show recently, and he said how lucky he was to have met Sophie and how fantastically supportive she's been to him. And that was interesting in the book. He had said to Ruthie when they were on the first throes of love, I wish I could have you away from my job and another woman to do the job, because I wouldn't subject you to life as a royal. It's just very difficult and very hard. So he understood the difficulties of a royal wife, even back then when he was that young. And this is what he was doing on the Titchmarsh show, is paying tribute to Sophie, the way she has handled royal life, the way she has been a credit to herself, but to him and to the royal family. So to me, it's all a nice story that's wrapped. I don't think there's any, the word shag is in it, so what? But I don't think there's anything to get.
It's good for a headline, right? But nothing more than that. Like you say, it's sort of you have to put it into the publisher publishes the book, and you get the headlines. But
if you've ever written a book,
yeah,
the publisher goes, "I want juice, I want meat, I want something that's controversial."
None of this stuff about kissing in the Kensington roof gardens, right?
Yes.
When did you take him to bed?
Yes.
All right, yeah, that kind of
that stuff.
That's what the publisher's going to be saying.
So, I want every detail of the sex. So,
completely.
In her way, she's done very good to keep it as sweet and as lovely as she has. So good on her. I hope she makes a lot of money from the book, and I hope it gets, if she's in a financial hole, I hope it gets her out of it. If she's not, I hope she has some nice holidays on the back of it.
Well, good luck, Rufie. And speaking of passions, Carol,
yes,
if you're enjoying this video so far, hit like, share, subscribe.
Definitely hit it.
What is the button they've got to press, Carol? Can you remember the button?
Like and subscribe.
No, but then there's the other one.
I don't know.
Hit the hype button. Hit the hype button. You
sorry.
get this up the feed, right? More people will see it. I just want to talk about something for just 2 seconds before we get on to the next thing.
Anyway,
I'm going to I've got a bit of a bug to bear.
What?
Well, it's really important to hype this video. Labour are currently trying to silence people like us on
from saying what
YouTube.
Yes.
They're trying to create this law, essentially, guys, that is going to mean whenever you go on YouTube, you're going to see BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky, the same 4 outlets who have been refusing to cover grooming gangs, who have been woke and rubbish, frankly, for years. Because we are now challenging them and our stories are being covered widely, Labour don't like that.
Do you know what? The Labour Party, they're hypocrites of the first order, because
100%.
they all use Twitter all of the time. Do you remember when Starmer was going down the toilet and they were all trying to say what a fantastic Prime Minister he was?
Yep.
They were all on Twitter going, we
love him.
support him 100%, we love him, he's done this, he's done that. So they're hypocrites of the first order. They will go on Twitter if it's to promote what they're doing.
Yep.
If they've been whipped into it by the government saying, go out and support Keir, be seen to do it. So they use it all of the time. So how dare they try to tell us what we can and can't say? And the only reason they're doing it is because most of the social media crowd, if you like, hate the Labour Party and don't waste a chance to point out the mistakes they make every other day, of which there are a lot.
There are plenty, Carol. Look, just to repeat, if you don't want to stop seeing us, if you don't want Sky and the BBC, etc., to be dominating your feed, hit like, hit share, hit subscribe. Carol, going to go on to the next section now.
Yes, good.
Now I've got that rant out of the way.
Right, good.
Nigel Farage.
Yes.
He's quit as the MP for Clacton. He's now going to fight in a by-election. Seems like they're all running scared, Carol. They can't be bothered to stand against him.
You know, it's not that they can't be bothered. They are terrified because they know full well. You see, for the past few weeks since all this controversy about the money, all the parties, all the major parties, especially Ed Davey, who's going to bust a blood vessel if he doesn't get Farage out of his head, have been saying that Farage is a disgrace. He shouldn't be an MP. He should get out of the way, resign. Well, he's done exactly that. Now they're saying it's all a big stunt. I'll tell you what was a stunt. If you want to talk about stunt, which is what Keir Starmer said, he said it was a desperate stunt. It was a stunt calling a by-election in Makerfield, when they had 400 MPs to choose from as Prime Minister. But no, they're going to take the local mayor of Manchester and catapult him into Makerfield to try and get him to be Prime Minister without any scrutiny from the Labour Party or the British people. So if you want to talk about a stunt, that was a big stunt in Makerfield. So how dare? And Starmer said he said Farage is up to his eyeballs and sleeves. This is the man who has his suits bought by Lord Ali, who has his glasses bought by Lord Ali. Half the cabinet have their clothes bought by Lord Ali.
And the
voice
coach at Christmas, you remember that one?
All of that. And Rayner going to his apartment in New York. So don't talk to me about sleaze and everything. The thing about Farage, what he did in saying he was going to resign, he was calling their bluff. And there's not a single person of the people who've had a go at him today, not Starmer, not Reeves, not Burnham, who would have the guts to say, OK, I will stand down and I will stand again and let's see what happens. None of them would have the guts because they know if they stood down in their constituencies, they would be never voted back.
They would be trounced, Carol. They would be absolutely trounced.
And the thing about Farage, the Parliamentary Standards Committee, because what all this lot are saying, why doesn't he wait until the Parliamentary Standards Committee has come to its decision about this £5 million gift he was given? So So that they're going to give their judgment in September. Why September? Why not next week? Because all they have to do, they have to look at when he got the donation.
Yep.
They have to look at the rules. They have to interview Farage. Boom, you've got everything you can possibly need. Why are we waiting till September? You know why? Because I think they're probably hoping to get something else on him. Because the establishment is terrified of Farage. They want him out. Yeah, I don't think he always does the right thing. I don't think. But what I hate is to see the establishment gang up on somebody who is doing politics different to them.
Yeah.
And that's what Farage is doing, and they can't bear it. And what he said this week, he's now angry. And they seem to be making a big thing. They're saying, oh, he's had a hissy fit and he's angry. You bet he's angry. Because what he has said is that the press are now hounding his family. They went to his TV station, went to his daughter's home and harassed her. They're all harassing his family. And he's saying, this I will not tolerate. I will not have it. And he's absolutely right, because if anyone went to Starmer's home and taunted his kids or his wife, he'd be the first on social media and on telly bleating about it.
I was going to say, we've sent our legendary investigations editor, Zach, out to doorstep people before.
Yeah.
Like you say, there are boundaries. As an editor, if
Yeah.
I'm sending him out there, I would never in a million years, and he wouldn't even ask, right? He's a pro. I would never send him to go and doorstep Starmer's family.
No, why would you? Nothing to do with
off
anything.
Limits. And
They're
quite
innocents.
rightly,
Yeah.
we should create those kind of boundaries where we say that is off limits.
Yeah, completely.
But apparently for Farage it's not. And on that, what is going on? I mean, it feels like really dodgy, some of this stuff. I think Tice came out yesterday. I saw a tweet saying that Tice came out yesterday and said the National Crime Agency might have been involved in handing over some of this information to journalists. That sounds shocking. If they are doing
the
that.
establishment is colluding
Yes.
to get rid of Nigel Farage because they're all tight. Now, if we find out who authorised them to do that or who ordered them to do that, wouldn't that be a story? It stinks. They're pretending Farage is the corrupt one here. But if that is true, it stinks to high heaven. And it will not be the only thing they're doing to try and discredit him and to try and get rid of him. But, the family thing is bad enough. But to hound a guy the way they have hounded him, and yes, he's angry. I'd be very angry. I'm amazed he hasn't said, stuff the lot of you, and flounced off and said, I've had enough of this. I sincerely hope he doesn't, because we need a revolution in politics in this country, and another 3 years of Andy Burnham is going to take us right down the toilet. And there are rumours that Burnham will call an election later this year, because he thinks that having Munstead Farage and having had his name blackened, he thinks that Labour will win again. Imagine that.
Well, easy election to win, right, if your main rival can't stand.
Well, if your main rival can't stand, also remember by September, he won't have done anything. Parliament is shut for most of the summer, so he will not be discredited by September because he won't have done anything. He will have a budget in maybe November, but the rumours are that he may call an election before that. Imagine that. 5 more years of Labour. My God.
Deary me.
God help us all.
Look, you mentioned this briefly earlier, and I kind of want to get on this point about Farage and maybe some of the missteps he's made recently. As someone on the right, I do find it a little bit frustrating that he's found himself in the position he's in. Partly the work of the establishment, but also his own poor judgment in a couple of places. And
go on,
I promise
finish.
I'll let you.
No, finish the point.
I also find it a bit concerning that he's on platforms like Cameo, where he's doing these birthday messages, when he's supposed to be getting ready to be Prime Minister of our country, right? It doesn't strike me as sometimes particularly serious about the task.
That's a stupid thing to do.
Yes.
Cameo is a stupid thing to do. I love the fact he went on TikTok when he was in the jungle, because actually what he did then was put himself out to a whole load of young people, the younger generation, and it worked. You're right, but when he says he's done nothing wrong in accepting this gift, Farage is not stupid. He would not stand up in public and say, I have done absolutely nothing wrong. I have stuck by the rules 100%. I don't believe he would say that. I think he's way too smart to say that, unless what he's saying is true. He would have had a team of lawyers go over the rules of what was permitted and what was not. And I think crucially, it depends on exactly when he was given the money. When was he given the money? Now, you're supposed to declare, if you become an MP, a whole year beforehand, any gifts or donations that could be seen as political donations. Now, It would be interesting to know exactly when he got the money. But what he says is it was not political. It was a gift.
From a mate, essentially.
And you know what? If you had to look, somebody said to me today, if the person who gave him the money, what would he expect if Farage got to be Prime Minister? Now, anyone who gives money to any party, big sums of money, do not tell me they don't expect favours in return. The least of which is usually being elevated to the Lords, but sometimes it's favours in business. It happens. It stinks and it's wrong, but it happens. And to pretend that this is like, Farage is going to do favours for this billionaire if he gets elected. He's saying it was a gift. When you're starting a political party, you don't have that. The funds are a bit sparse. You don't have years and decades of support from people. So, I don't know why he took the money, but we will find out. But I don't see why we have to wait until September to find out. I think they're trying to find other stuff on him.
Well, it's going to be a hairy summer, isn't it, Carol? It's going to
be
a big one. We'll see. Maybe he'll win that by-election. I mean, it seems like
well, he's only standing against
Binhead or whatever the hell.
Binhead. Well, I think he's probably going to win that, isn't he?
Well, you'd hope.
But how cowardly of the other parties not to stand? How cowardly?
I think it speaks to a lot. I think they just have no weight in the country anymore. They know they'll get trounced. Yeah. Burnham doesn't want the first month of his time or week of his time in office to be marred by getting absolutely clouted in a by-election by.
You had the bozo Ed Davey, leader of the Lib Dem, saying this week, he's done nothing for the people of Clacton. Cut to Clacton, people there are being interviewed. They say, no, we think he's fabulous,
yeah, he's right,
and
mate,
we don't care that he's got 5 houses. And we'll vote for him again. And people are saying, I didn't vote for him last time, but I will this time. Yeah. So that's how out of touch our major politicians are.
And they'll say stuff like, Kemi was like, we don't want to be part of this political circus, that's why we're not standing in the by-election. No, it's not. You don't want to lose your deposit twice.
That's exactly right.
You guys have got no leg to stand on.
They had a 26,000 majority before Farage, and Farage took it off them with nearly a 9,000 majority. Yep. He got 45% of the vote. So they're terrified that he's going to take 55% of the vote this time.
I think if you're in the Tory shoes as well, there's a good chance if Makefield's anything to go by, you finish behind Restore.
Exactly.
And I mean...
And that's what Kemi's frightened of. Yeah. And I'm disappointed in her, because I thought she had more guts than that. I get why Davies fiddling around. I get why Labour don't want to be there. But this woman, I believe, has cojones.
Yeah.
And to use that as an excuse, it's not a fake by-election, it's a real by-election. And it's she would have been the first one to call it, because none of them like Farage. But she should have stood somebody there and just said, this is real. I'm going to put a candidate up.
Yeah. Carol, pleasure.
Are we done? I'm hot now because I'm cross.
It's so hot in here, isn't it?
No, it's not even that's hot in here, that I'm cross. My blood pressure's gone.
Between Prince Harry...
I know, that, Ruthie was my only...
Edwards... That didn't get you hot under the collar.
No, Ruthie was my only calm spot. The rest is just... It's upset me. Go on.
Well, look, Carol, thanks for coming in again.
It's a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And thank you for watching. Don't forget, hit like, share and subscribe. And lastly, Carol... What button have they got to hit? The hype button.
Hey.
Don't forget to smash the hype button. More people will watch this video. Thank you so much for watching. We love you all. Bye-bye for now.
Right, a quick pause in the podcast to tell you about our sponsor, Incogni. You had those phone calls from numbers you don't recognise, or you go in your inbox and there's emails for stuff you did not sign up for. Well, that's because someone somewhere is selling your private information. That's where today's sponsor comes in. Incogni. They will contact these people who have been taking your information, and they'll say, oi, stop, delete it. Go to the website, incogni.com, you type in the details, 2 minutes later, Incogni are sorting it out for you automatically. And because I love you, I've got you a discount. It ain't 10%, it ain't 20, 60% off. 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Just go to incogni.com/Daily Expresso or click the link in the episode description box below.